Hello and welcome to the channel. In this video I'll show you how you can assemble parts in FreeCAD. So as example I will use this model, this door hinge here. As you can see, this door hinge is composed by 3 parts. So I will show you how to design these 3 parts and then how to assemble these parts in FreeCAD. And for this model we'll use 4 workbench to create this model and assemble these parts. We'll use part design, sketcher, sheet metal, and A2 plus workbench. Okay, so as first step, I will show you the design of these 3 parts. If you like what you see, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like in this video. I also have a Ko-fi page in which you can donate to support the channel if you want. Link to this page can be found in the description of this video. Thank you. So now I close this file. And here in the start page, what I do, I click on this plus icon to create a new file, and now I save. I click on this icon to save the file. I want to save this file in this folder, so double click here, and now I will set a name for this file. For example, I will set part 1 and enter, and now as you can see I have this file saved with this name here. And now I go to workbench selector, I click here and I select part design workbench, and now I create a body and a new sketch. I want to create this sketch in axis plane, so here I click in this plane. Okay, and here in this sketch I will draw a line and arc, so I go to sketcher geometries here and I select this line tool and draw this horizontal line. And now I select this arc tool, I click in this origin point and now this end point, and I draw this arc here. And next I will set the dimension of this sketch. So first here I select this horizontal distance tool and I select this end point and this origin point, and here I set a distance of 32. Okay, and now I want to set the diameter of this arc here. So I go to these tools here and I click in this arrow here and I select constraint diameter, and I click in this arc here and I set a diameter of 6.5. Okay, and now as you can see I have 2 degrees of freedom here. So what I will do, I will set the vertical dimensions. So I selected this tool here, vertical distance tool, and now these 2 points, and I set a distance of 2 millimeters. Now I select this point and this point here and I set 1.5. Okay, and now as you can see the sketch is full constrained, so you can see here. And now I close this sketch, and now I want to make an extrusion of this sketch, but here in this part design workbench we don't have a tool that can make extrusion of this sketch. So I go to workbench selector and I click here and I go to sheet metal. Okay, and if you don't have this workbench installed in your FreeCAD, you can install this workbench. Just go to tools and select add-on manager. You will install this workbench here in add-on manager. Okay, and now I go to model, and here you can see the sheet metal tools. Okay, now it's not activated. So to make these tools active, what we have to do, just select the sketch, and now as you can see we have this tool active. Okay, so now I click here to make the extrusion, and as you can see now I have this sketch extruded, and now I will make some change in the parameters of this extrusion. So I go to this base band and now I go to the parameters, and here for example I will change the midplane. I'll set through here in the midplane, and I will set a length of 7.9 and a thickness of 3 millimeters. And now as you can see I have this part here, so I go back to part design workbench, and now I'll use the part design workbench to make some fillets in this part. So first I select this edge here and I go to fillet tool, and here I change the radius to 5 millimeters, and I click add to add this edge here. I add this edge, and then I click OK. And as you can see, now I have these fillets here, and now I want to create another fillet. So I select this edge here, control select this edge, and now I create a fillet here with a radius of 0.5. Okay, and now I have this, and next here I want to create 4 holes here in this part. So I select this face here and I create a new sketch, and here I will draw a cycle. So I go to sketch geometry and I select the cycle tool, and now I draw the cycle, and I will set a diameter of 6 for this cycle. So I go here in these tools and I click in this arrow, and now I select this tool here and click in the cycle, and I set a diameter of 6. Okay, and now I will clone this cycle. So what I do, first here I click escape, and then I select the cycle, and I go here in these tools, I click in this arrow and select this clone option, and now I place the cycle here, and next I will mirror these cycles. So first I hide these constraints here, and I select these 2 cycles, and next this horizontal line, and I click in this tool here, symmetry, and as you can see, now we have the cycles mirrored. Okay, and next here I set symmetric constraints here, so I select this tool here, and now I select these 2 center points, and then this horizontal line, and I set the same for these 2 cycles. Okay, and now as you can see, I have 4 degrees of freedom, so I will constrain the placement of these cycles. So first here I go to this horizontal distance tool. Okay, and here I set a distance of 10. I set a distance of 10 millimeters, and now I switch to section view, and I select the center point and this origin point, and I set 14. Okay, and next here I will set vertical distance, so I select this tool here, and now I select these 2 cycles, and here I set a distance of 15, and now the distance between these 2 cycles I set 6. Okay, and now I leave the sketch, and I create a pocket here, and I said okay, and as you can see, now I have these 4 holes, and now I want to make chamfers here. So I select this edge and I go to chamfer tool. Here I'll set a size of 1 millimeter, so I click add, and I add these 3 edges, and now I click OK. And as you can see, we have these chamfers here. And next here I want to create a pocket in this part. So what I do, I create a new sketch here in XY plane, and now I go to sketch geometry. Here in this sketch I will draw a rectangle, so I go to sketch geometry, and here I select centered rectangle and I draw this rectangle, and now I switch to section view, and I will set the size of this rectangle. So first I select this vertical distance tool, I set a length of 40 for this line here, and now I select this horizontal distance tool and I set the distance between these 2 points. I set 6.8. Okay, and now I leave the sketch and I create a pocket here, and I change the tab here to triangle, and I set symmetric to plane, and now I click OK. And next I want to make a fillet here in this edge. So what I do, I select this edge here and I go to fillet tool, and here I'll set a radius of 1, so I click add, and now I add this edge here and hit OK. And now the design of this first part is finished, so I save this file, and now I go to file and I select this option, save as. I click here, And now I will save this file as part 2. Now I will make some changes in this part here. So I go to model and I go to this pocket here. I click in this arrow and double click here. I will draw 2 rectangles, but first here I will hide these constraints here. I click in this button and I select this rectangle and I make this rectangle a construction geometry. So I click in this icon, and now as you can see, the color of this rectangle changed, the color of these lines here. So next I click in this arrow and I select rectangle, and now I draw these 2 rectangles, and I will set smart constraints here. So I select this tool, and now I select this point here, and now this line. Okay, and then here I set vertical constraint for these 2 points. So I click here, and now I have this. And next I will set the distance between this point to this point here. So I select vertical distance tool, and now I select these 2 points and I set 0.5. Okay, and now I leave the sketch, and as you can see, now we have a pocket here, and as you can see, we have this problem here. So to solve this problem, I go to model and I make a double click on this fillet here, and first I click add button, and here I add this edge. Okay, and now what I do, I select these 2 edges here and I click delete. Okay, and now I click add again and I add this edge here, and now I hit OK, and as you can see, we have this. So I finished the design of the second part. So I save this part here and I create a new file. I click in this icon and I save this file as part 3. Okay, and now I close this document here, and now here I create a new body and a new sketch. The sketch here I want to create in YZ plane, so I click in YZ plane here, and now I go to sketch geometry and I select polyline tool, and now I draw this sketch as you can see. Okay, and now here I will set equal constraint. So first I select this equal constraint here, and I set these 2 lines equal and these 2 lines equal. Okay, and next I select smart constraint and I set these 2 points smart to this vertical line. Okay, and next I will set the dimension of this sketch. So first here I select this horizontal distance tool, and for this line here I set a length of 2 millimeters. Okay, and for this line here I set 8 millimeters, and now I select this vertical distance tool and I select this line here and I set a length of 6.5 divided by 2. Okay, so here is 3.25, and now I set the distance between these 2 points. Here I will set the half of 6, so I set 6 divided by 2, 3 millimeters. So now I leave the sketch and I go to revolution tool, and here in the parameters I change the axis to y-axis, this axis here, and I click OK. And now I want to make a fillet in this part, so I select this face here, and now in this tool, and I change the radius to 0.5, and now I click in this add button and I add this edge here and I click OK. And as you can see, now I have these fillets and I finished the design of this part. So I save this part, and now we'll make the assembly of these parts. So first here I close this file, and now I create a new file and I save this file as I'll save this file as assembly. Okay, and now I change the workbench to A2 plus workbench, And if you don't have this workbench installed in your FreeCAD, you can install this workbench. Just click tools and add-on manager, and here you will install this workbench here. Okay, so first here I will import the first part. So I go to these tools here and I click in this icon to import a file. I click here, and as you can see we have this window here. So I will select this part 3, double click, and as you can see now we have this part in this document. So go to model, and if you click in this part here and go to the properties of this part here, you can see here in import part that the position of this part here is fixed, so we can change here. And next here I will import the second part. So I click in this icon, and now I select part 1, double click, and now I will import this part 2, double click. I click in this icon here. Now I click in this part and I move this part here. And next I will rotate this part. So I select this part here and then click on mouse and I select transform. Okay, and here I rotate this part in this way and I click OK. And now we'll assemble these parts here. So what we do first, now I want to assemble this part and this part here. So what I do, I select the face of this hole here, and now I select the face of this cylinder here, and as you can see here we have these constraints here. So if we click here in this constraint here, as you can see is axis constant constraint. So I click here, and as you can see now we have this part assembled in this part here. But now we have to fix the position of this part in this part here. So what I do, first here I select this face, and next I select this face here and I go to constraints and I set this constraint here plane constant. Okay, and I click OK. Here we can change the offset of this part. So I go to the top view, and as you can see we have a space here, and here we don't have. So I want the same space in these two sides. So I go to offset and I change here. I change here, for example, minus 0.5. And as you can see here, we have the same space in these two parts. So now I click accept. And next what I want is to assemble this part here in this part. So what I do, I select this face, the face of this hole here, and now I select this face, the face of this cylinder here, and I go to this constraint again. I click here, and as you can see we have this part here assembled in this part here. And now I have to fix the position of this part here. So what I do, I select this face here and this face, and I select this constraint here, plane constant, and I click accept. And now I go to the top view, and as you can see I made a mistake in this part here, in the design of this part here. So I will make some changes in this part here. Okay, so I selected this part, and now I go to this icon here and I click here, and as you can see here we open this document part 2. So here I scroll down here and I go to this sketch here, double click, and here I will change this distance to minus 0.5. And now I leave the sketch and I save, and now I close this file. And next I will update this part here. So I select this part and I go to this tool here. As you can see, with this tool here we can update this part here. So I click here, and as you can see, now we have this dialog here. I click yes, and as you can see, this part now is correct. I go to the top view, and as you can see, now we have the same space here. So it's all. So thank you for watching this video. If you find this video useful, please leave a like and a comment if possible.